Have you ever heard of the famous Coca-Cola experiment in the 70s by Professor Dennis Reagan of Cornell University? It really underscores the importance of the law of reciprocity. Professor Reagan conducted a sociology experiment where he brought in hundreds of subjects who thought they were coming in to critique art. In reality, they had a partner with them that was critiquing the art, and that partner was a Confederate. Joe is who they called him. And Joe's job was to conduct a completely different experiment. So what Joe would do is, as they were getting started, he would excuse himself for a moment and leave the room. When he left the room, he would come back with a couple of Coca-Colas. And he'd say, I asked the professor if it's okay if I got myself a Coke, and I went ahead and got one for you. And he'd hand the subject a Coke. And then they would finish critiquing the art 30, 40 minutes later. And as they were wrapping up, Joe would say, hey, I'm involved in a contest where I could win a prize for selling raffle tickets for 25 cents to get a brand new automobile. Could I interest you in a raffle ticket? And here's the interesting thing that was found, is that when Joe bought a Coke for the participant, he got a 500% return on the cost of a Coke in the sale of raffle tickets. But when he returned empty-handed, when he excused himself from the room and came back without a gift for the other participant, then he had substantially less results, substantially less success in selling raffle tickets. Less than half the tickets were sold that he sold when he bought him a soft drink. They took this experiment then one step further. And they invited people in, again, under the auspices of being there to critique art. So their mind is in a totally different direction. And then they made Joe be as cantankerous and disagreeable and unlikable as they possibly could. And you could watch it was all filmed, you could watch the reactions from people like, where did they find this guy? I mean, he was very off-putting. But then same thing, he would excuse himself and he would come back with, I asked the professor if I could buy a Coke, and I also bought you one. And he'd give him a Coca-Cola. And at the end, in the wrap-up, same thing. I'm involved in this contest, and would you be interested in buying some raffle tickets for 25 cents each to potentially win a new car? And the interesting thing they found is that there was no difference whatsoever in the number of tickets that Joe sold when he was being cantankerous or when he was being the most likable, agreeable, amiable person he could possibly be, polite person he could possibly be, when he came back with a Coke. When he came back with a gift, then both bought virtually the same number of tickets, and they bought 500% what the cost were of the raffle tickets. On the other hand, when he came back empty-handed, the basis on which people bought raffle tickets was the basis on which they liked Joe, which meant that when he was cantankerous, they either bought no tickets or they maybe just bought one to get themselves off the hook. When they liked him, they bought a few more, but in no scenario did they buy the number in volume that they bought when they were given a gift, even when they found Joe to be the most disagreeable person that you'd ever find. So what's the lesson in all of this as it relates to the law of reciprocity, and how does this figure into the program with chamber revenue strategies? The famous Coca-Cola experiment underscores the importance of the law of reciprocity. It sends a message to us that the social norms take precedent over market norms when both exist. That every culture in the world says we can't accept a gift or a kindness without some level of reciprocation. That we must reciprocate. In fact, there's an old Chinese proverb that says the favors from others must be remembered for 1,000 years. And in this experiment, what we've learned is even with a cantankerous Confederate, even with someone that we in no way, shape, or form care for, when they bring us a gift, we feel compelled to be able to reciprocate, in this case, through the purchase of raffle tickets. The purchase of raffle tickets that are 500% the cost of the beverage. So the point that I want to make here for you is that when we receive a gift, regardless of the circumstances, the Confederate that's so cantankerous, or a sister who had been really ostracized from the family for crazy behavioral issues, simply doesn't matter. One more quick one. There was a cookie company that tested something. They were sending people door to door to sell cookies. And what they decided to do was call in a neighborhood 50% of the homes 2 days before they sent their salesman in, and they just simply offered a free recipe. Hi, I'm with the ABC Cookie Company. We as holiday time, and we wanted to offer you a free recipe for holiday cookies. If you've got a moment, we've had great success with this. We'd like to share it with you. There's absolutely no cost or obligation of any kind. And they spend a minute with the homemaker oftentimes on the phone. Thank you very much. The phone call ends, and a day or two later, the doorbell rings, and I'm with ABC Company, and I wanted to see if you were interested in buying some of our cookies. The other 50% of the homes didn't receive a phone call, didn't receive a free recipe, but purely had someone ring that doorbell and say, I'm with the ABC Company, and I'm interested in seeing if I could offer you some cookies. Would you be interested in any of our delicious cookies? I think you've already guessed the results, have you not? When the call came ahead of time that said, here is something free, a simple recipe, okay? Here is a no strings attached gift, recipe for holiday cookies. Sales quadrupled in those homes from people that actually purchased cookies as compared to the homes who did not receive a call, received no recipe, and then were solicited for cookies, and they bought 25% as many cookies as the homes that had received a less than 5-minute phone call.